We streaming? Is it going? I can't tell. Yeah. There we go. Awesome. All right. I don't have any viewers yet. I think that one viewer is me. Oh, what's happening? Here we go. So, bunch of stuff happened today. Civil war, a bunch of companies are going out of business. Biden's probably going to cause the downfall of his entire party and possibly America. So let's just jump right into the Diablo news, because I tried to play Diablo new season, and apparently it sucks. I knew it would. I don't know what I was expecting. I gotta figure out how to get this. Why is this not working? Did that do it?
Breaking news this
Yeah,
morning.
it did.
I slept
All right.
in and I looked at my Discord messages as soon as I got up, and it was basically spammed by my editor sending me a whole bunch of links.
Wrong one. There we go. There we go.
Telling me, I don't know where you are, but you're missing the news of the morning. And if I go straight to it here, I'll show you.
That's why I get up at like 7.
Microsoft is laying off 1,900 people in its gaming division, including Activision Blizzard. This is just 3 months following closing its $69 billion acquisition, and the story is coming shortly. Now, this is not the only layoff in the gaming division recently. We saw layoffs at Twitch. I know my own sponsor, G Fuel, has had some layoffs. Also, Riot Games has had layoffs, and all.
Dude, everybody's having layoffs. It's not just in the gaming industry. It's everywhere. Who else has been having layoffs? I couldn't even name them all. All of the journalist companies. Daily Wire's fine, Timcast is fine, all those places are fine. It's just like all of these companies with the leftist fingers in their business. All of that wokeism is just killing everything. It seems like the companies without wokeism are doing fine. That's why Amazon's getting away from it. Because they can smell the blood in the water, and they're getting the hell out of there.
Of these, as far as I can remember, was just within the last month or two, basically right after the holiday season or during the holiday season. So it's been a pretty brutal time for the gaming and tech industry right now. Now, in an article by Bloomberg, you can see here Phil Spencer wrote that the cuts represented about 8% of Microsoft's 22,000 gaming workers. And you have to remember, Blizzard over there has about 9,000 workers, to give you an idea. The Verge first reported the news, and they also mentioned some of the other layoffs I was talking about. We can scroll.
That's a lot of people to get laid off. Cuts represented about 8%. Man.
Down here to a quote. Together, we've set priorities, identified areas of overlap, and ensured that we're aligned on the best opportunities for growth. And that's straight from Phil Spencer there. Now, one of the interesting things is the layoffs just weren't all the way down at the bottom level, and some people were actually leaving the company here. Blizzard's boss, Mike Ybarra, is also out. So he is actually leaving. And if you go here, you can see that in a note to the staff, Microsoft Studios president Matt Booty said that Ybarra has decided to leave the company. At the Blizz convention in November, Ybarra said in an interview that he wanted to stay at the company for a long haul. So he decided to leave, but he also stated that he really wanted to be there for the long haul in November.
Something will drag me out of Blizzard, he said. That's how long I will be here. Seems like something dragged him out.
November. In fact, the quote here states, "Someone will drag me out of Blizzard," he said. "That's how long I will be here." Well, and someone might have dragged him out of Blizzard. Now, while 1,900
That's what it seems like to me.
are being laid off, not all of these are directly out of Blizzard. I was not able to find exactly how many Blizzard employees, for instance, got laid off, but they do mention here in the Verge article the entirety of Phil Spencer's statements here, which he said the people directly impacted by these reductions have all played an important part in the success of Activision Blizzard, ZeniMax, and the Xbox teams, and should be proud of everything they accomplished. So they are laid off from all of those teams.
Whoa, second viewer? I'm first viewer.
Mike Ybarra makes sort of a nice closing
Could you type something in the chat if you're actually real, please? I would really like to know.
statement basically saying he cares about the people that are going out. Feel free to reach out to him. To the Blizzard community, I also want to let you know that today is my last day at Blizzard.
If the chat
Leaving
even
Blizzard
works,
through an incredible
I
time
don't
with
even
me
know.
and the team shaping into the future was an absolute honor. Having spent 20 years in Microsoft with the Activision Blizzard behind us, it's time for me once again to become Blizzard's biggest fan from the outside. Now, it's possible that he voluntarily left, even though he doesn't state it in his own.
Why am I not
message here,
subscribed?
as in the article here, where Phil Spencer kind of breaks it down as well. This really says, in addition, Mike Ybarra and I have been discussing his future and some of his personal passions for some time. As many of you know, Mike Ybarra has spent more than 20 years at Microsoft. Now he has seen acquisition through as Blizzard's president. He has decided to leave the company. So in this statement, basically, he's saying that Mike Ybarra is the one that made the decision to leave. Who knows if it's true? Doesn't really matter. Either way, at the end of the day, Mike Ybarra's out. He is, however, not the only senior leaving the company here. We have Blizzard's chief design officer is leaving the company as one of Blizzard's co-founders. Alan has had a broad impact of all Blizzard games. His influence will be felt for years here to come. Sort of some. We just have some corporate speak here, but basically, we're also losing the chief design officer. They are all.
I'm just gonna go ahead and make a prediction and say that these aren't gonna be the only ones in the coming days and weeks and months. There's gonna be all kinds of people leaving.
Also closing down Blizzard's survival game project. So if you didn't know, Blizzard was in fact planning a survival game called Odyssey, and that project.
I had no idea, but that sounds like it would have been awful anyway, because Blizzard doesn't know how to make. They know how to make good games, but they also know how to make good games not so good no more because of monetization issues.
Project is now scrapped. That was a 6-year plus project that is now canceled. Now, with the current conversation going around Diablo 4, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of comments about how, like, oh, this was a long time coming. Like, this is what happens when you make a subpar D4 game and things of that nature. But
not just a subpar D4 game, it's subpar Overwatch, subpar World of Warcraft, which I think they did all right, but it wasn't enough to gain people's attention. Subpar, I don't even, what other games do they make? Call of Duty? They're attached to Call of Duty?
2 points here. One is this is one of many of the gaming companies that are experiencing massive layoffs in 2024. Okay, and 2 is, well, to be honest with you, the higher up reaches of these companies, I don't really care as much if they get laid off. The people that are sort of in the trenches, I'm going to put, that are getting laid off here, standard devs, new people into the company, etc. I actually feel for quite a bit. So if you are one of those people, Godspeed and good luck to you. I know several people over there at Blizzard because I have spent some time going down and visiting the Blizzard campus, play testing things, etc. And I have said this many times before, but it remains true that every person I've ever met in person was super nice.
What's that? What's this right here? Is that a bottle of rum? Looks like a bottle of rum. I can't tell what it is just from the back of it. It's definitely alcohol. It's got to be. Unless that's just some crazy Alaskan soda.
I know it's, their job to be an influencer's coming. You're going to be super nice, but legitimately, they all seem like great people in my experience. And these are people experiencing an unfortunate thing, losing their job. So regardless about how we feel about Diablo 4 or anything like that, Godspeed to them. I do feel quite bad for the people getting laid off at the moment. And keep in mind, a lot of companies that are making good products, like in my opinion, Discord, Google, Riot Games, these types of companies are also experiencing layoffs in literally the same month.
Wait, whoa, did you say that those those places are good?
these types of companies are also experiencing Google, right? Thing like that. Godspeed to them. I do feel quite bad for the people getting laid off at the moment. And keep in mind, a lot of companies that are making good products, like in my opinion, Discord, Google, right?
What good products are is Google making? You could argue maybe the Pixel phone, but it's not good. Better than Apple, I guess, but still not good. Uh, Google Fi, they make Google Fi. The Play Store on Android, Android's garbage. I don't know. I don't know why he would say such a thing. And Riot Games, aren't they owned by China?
Riot Games. These types of companies are also experiencing layoffs in literally the same month. Reddit is responding basically how I thought they would, saying like, I hope the people that did season 1 and season 3 are sort of gone. But I think the real take is something closer to this, which is I can't imagine how this is particularly encouraging for the growth of
Rumble just told me that I went live, and I went live a while ago. Why is it just now giving me the notification?
Diablo 4 going forward. That's sort of how I feel. It's not like this is a new hiring of people going out. The same people were there, but now we are losing some of them.
I
So
don't
I
know
can't
if this
imagine
is
that
too
is
quiet or
good
not.
for growth of the game in a time that is quite arguably
That
some of
better?
the hardest feedback
I
that we
don't
go
know.
back. I know you've seen a couple of my videos. I've been trying very hard to
Because
strike a balance. If you see my early impression
that other viewer ain't telling me nothing. I don't know if the stream is good or not.
video of saying what I truly believe is some of the positives about the season in order to be fair. But the reality is, it's not in a good place right now. I'm seeing many of my fellow, I don't know if I'm going to call them coworkers, but content creators or something that are basically done with this season, just literally days into it or about to be done with this season. If you're wondering about me for myself with Diablo 4, I am discouraged. I think most of us probably.
I'm more than discouraged. I am turned off. I'm not picking it back up. I don't care if season 4 makes it amazing. There are some other games that are coming out soon that I'm going to invest my time into. I still haven't picked up Pal World. I'll probably do that at some point.
Are a lot.
I'm still playing Resident Evil 4. I've probably beat the story about 10 times. I'm on the third playthrough of Ada's story.
A lot of us either had our peak of our career, if you want to call that, playing games that with Diablo 4, and we're definitely hoping for a growth pattern, and we seem to not be receiving that, at least with that game, to put it mildly. So at the moment, a lot of people are just going to play other games. I think you're
Yep.
going to see something very similar with myself with this. I am not seeing a lot of signs to be very encouraging at the moment. Season 4 will be the season that really, in my opinion, totally makes or breaks the game at this point with the itemization.
I'm already gonna see that it's gonna break it. There's no way they're gonna. It's too far in. It's been a year. Maybe they could cyberpunk it. I really doubt it, especially with all the layoffs that have been happening and that are probably gonna happen. All the people leaving.
Changes, and if they don't know itemization changes, Diablo 4 will not be in a very healthy place. In terms of are these layoffs going to make the game better, I don't think that's the case unless they announce, okay, well, we laid off X amount of people, but X amount of new people are coming in at higher costs. We're actually, which is kind of counteractive to the point of the layoffs. They're trying to save money. I doubt they're going to like raise how much they're paying people, bring in some fresh, good veteran blood there. So that's just kind of how I see it on this take. I don't.
Fresh veteran is kind of a oxymoron. I don't know. Fresh veteran. That's like saying dirty soap.
I'm not happy about these layoffs at all. This isn't good news in terms of Diablo 4's game, and this definitely isn't good news for the people getting laid off. It's just a tech company is once again doing layoffs here. It's unfortunate. So for today, for me, I'm going to go live. We're probably going to chat about this for a bit. I'm assuming this is going to be the talking point that everyone's going to want to talk about today on live stream. And then I'm going to play D4 for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'm not going to play D4 anymore. To my one viewer, I will be right back. I'm going to go pour me a glass of motor oil. I have returned with my motor oil. That's some good stuff. All right. What's next in the news? New California bill could require cars to have speed limiter technology. Yeah, let's check that out.
Proposed bill would force California drivers to ease up on the gas pedal. Supporters say that bill, which would require speed limiting technology in all new cars, will reduce traffic deaths and injuries.
KTLA 5's Corrine Winter joining us now live in the newsroom with more. Corrine?
Glenn, right now, this is just a measure that Sacramento lawmakers are considering. It hasn't yet gotten the green light. Some drivers say this restriction, however, is not a total solution to speeding.
Yeah, especially with people that are going to be getting around it. And the people who really want to speed, they'll get around it. And also, how are you going to do that to the older vehicles? People can't afford new vehicles. And what are you going to do with all the people who are breaking into the cars? Because that's the real problem. Not people speeding, it's people who break into cars, steal them, and speed, and try and run from the police. That's what your real problem is. That's what I see. I don't see people just like speeding. I'm seeing people going over 100 miles per hour speeding, which you can't do if you're poor. Most people are poor.
Yeah, I'm guilty.
Some Angelinos admit it's happened.
Everybody's
I do
guilty.
Go a little bit over.
Going a little fast.
Yeah, imagine when it's speed limit 55 and you're going 60, and all of a sudden you're getting blue and red lights flashing inside your vehicle, tell you to slow down. Sounds like some Chinese shit to me. No, thank you.
Faster than they should while driving.
If they do pass the bill, I guess I will abide by it.
A new California bill wants to.
I'm not going to abide by it, but I ain't going to be in California, though. I will actively defy this law.
Sacramento lawmakers are considering a measure that would require vehicles sold in California to come with technology that prevents drivers from exceeding the speed limit. The bill is SB 961, but some say that's not the solution to ensuring safer roadways. It would require that vehicles built or sold in California would be restricted from driving more than 10 miles per hour above the speed limit, except emergency vehicles.
I don't love that law because I feel like there are situations where you need to go over 10 miles an hour.
Yeah, like what if you're being chased by crazy people and they don't have the restrictions? Or, the tyrannical government is coming after you. Yeah, no, I ain't for this.
In certain situations, I feel like maybe that's a law for people who continually abuse the speed limit, and maybe those people.
Senator Scott Wiener of San Francisco proposed the measure. Wiener said road deaths across California are soaring, up 22% just in.
Or, make the punishments for speeding worse instead of, This isn't really about people speeding. This is about wanting to control people.
In the past few years, more than 4,000 people died on California roads last year. Drivers would be able to temporarily override this system in case of an emergency.
Yeah, they're gonna punish. How many people are in California? I don't even know. See, population, California. So you're gonna punish 39 million people for this amount of people. That sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds totally okay to me.
Now, if passed, the technology would be required in all vehicles starting with model year 2027. Wiener also posted on X, this speed limiting technology already exists. The European Union is moving in this direction, and the National Transportation Safety Board has recommended adopting the requirement nationally.
The senator also pointed out if the U.S. had similar safety policies to other wealthy nations, 25,000 fewer people would die on our roads each year. That's the very latest in the newsroom. I'm Karina Winter. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
Oh. Yeah, well, there's that. And that's scary. And I don't want none of that. All right. What's next? When I get done watching these, I might watch some other stuff and check out Twitter for a minute. Parents move. I already watched this. Or not this, but not this video in particular. I already watched a video on this. I might save that one. I don't know this man. Colin Noir. I've heard the name. Maybe he's been on Timcast before. I like his hat.
When the President of the United States says this,
and I love people who say, the blood of liberty, or excuse me, the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. Well, guess what, man? I didn't see a whole lot of patriots that are out there walking around making sure that we have these weapons. Well, and if you really want to worry about the government, you need an F-16.
And the room that's literally filled with the government starts laughing like this.
You need an F-16.
I don't think we need an F-16 if they end up losing it first. What are we going to fight an F-16 with? Or what are they going to fight us? I don't know. They lost their F-16. They lose their shit. And we got hackers. We can come up with stuff too. We got bowling ball slingshots.
You don't need a AR-15. No, I'm serious when you think about it. I'm not joking, because that's one of the arguments made by, right, that we need to be able to protect ourselves against the government.
And he's literally saying, you can't protect yourself. If we want to come after you, we're going to come after you. So you need to get an F-16. Is what he's saying. We need to start building drones, which I know some people that build drones.
Well, look.
That should tell you everything you need to know about why the Second Amendment is so important. As old and senile as Joe Biden is,
what do you think I am, some old senile hermit who lives in a shack and craps her pants?
He's a gift to the people because he frequently says the quiet parts out loud. And as a result, he ends up giving the people a clear view of not only these politicians' ignorance and many times sheer stupidity, but also their unbelievably smug and dictatorial elitism. But you have to be willing to pay attention. So come along as I do.
Yeah, like what's happening right now at the border. He's saying that, like, there's nothing you can do.
Do a two-way breakdown on the speech Joe Biden gave at the U.S. Conference of Mayors winter meeting.
To coordinate these efforts and create the first ever White House, what we did, my staff came along and said, you know, we need a White House office dedicated to getting guns off the street and threatening and treating the trauma from gun violence, because there's a lot of trauma.
So, in short,
Yeah, they're gonna take away your guns because you're all criminals. And then when you don't have them, they're gonna force you to open your borders. And then what are you gonna do when you can't defend it? That's the whole reason people have guns, so that things that are happening at the border right now can be prevented.
you created a White House office to attack a constitutional right. Because I don't see a White House office to take cars off the streets, even though every day 37 people in the United States die in drunk driving accidents. And I don't think there should be such an office, because banning a vital yet lifeless tool.
What caused them to get into that drunk driving accident? Was it the car? Was it the alcohol? Or was it the person? You could argue maybe it was the alcohol, but the car didn't drive itself. We're getting close to that actually being a thing, though. Car drunk driving itself. But a person drunk driving, was it him or the alcohol? We tried to ban alcohol before. That didn't work.
Because of human actions is stupid, especially when that tool saves more lives than it takes, and it's not even close.
And it's not even close, really.
I mean, it's not even close.
In 2021, there were 20,958 murders committed with a gun. But guns are used defensively by firearm owners in approximately 1.67.
Here's another point on why people should have guns. If a tyrannical government comes after people and there's nothing they can do except fight back at that point, you would rather them have guns because it's going to be over quick. They're either going to run out of ammo or you're going to die from gunshot wound. Or they're going to die from gunshot wound. One of those things is going to happen. But if they don't have guns, they're going to come up with unconventional ways to protect themselves. Such as bowling ball slingshot.
Million incidents per year. But no, let's create a White House office to ban a thing that saves millions of lives. Sounds pretty smart to me, huh?
Big dummy.
Some of you may remember a woman named Dianne Feinstein and Joe Biden passed the first assault weapons ban back when I was a senator. And mass shootings actually went down. So I'm still committed to banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. We've done it before and we can do it again.
I want you to keep in mind that this is the woman Joe Biden is praising.
She says she got the best she could. If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it. I could not do that. The votes weren't here.
This woman not only wanted to ban semi-auto guns, she wanted to have them confiscated. And this is who Joe Biden is praising. These people will tell you they support the Second Amendment, but they just want common sense gun measures, like banning and confiscating the type of gun used in most self-defense shootings. And him saying that after they passed the 94 assault weapon ban, mass shootings went down is disingenuous, because according to a journal article written by a professor at Northeastern University who collected data back to 1982 from 1976 to 1994, about 18 mass shootings occurred each year. During the ban, 1995 to 2004, there were about 19 incidents per year. After the ban, through 2011, the average went up to nearly 21. That's literally the opposite of what happened, Joe. Now, if you factor in the increase after the ban expired, it went up a whole 2 more incidents. Not to mention, assault weapons are not as commonplace in mass shootings as some gun control advocates believe. Fox wrote in a 2013 article in the journal Homicide Studies. Instead, semi-automatic handguns, 47.9%, are far more prevalent in random massacres than firearms that would typically be classified as assault weapons. Joe Biden and gang know this though, but their goal is to start with assault weapons because their appearance and the lack of knowledge on such guns by the masses makes banning them an easier first step to the ultimate goal of banning all guns outright. What do you think their next suggestion would be when there's a mass shooting but it happens with a handgun? They'll start talking about banning those too. We've seen this thing play out in other countries like Australia and the UK. Anti-gun politicians like Biden have all but said that what those countries did is their model.
We have to pass universal background checks. It doesn't violate the Second Amendment, for God's sake.
Yes, it does.
The Constitution at the University of Pennsylvania.
We have background checks. But what Biden is talking about is universal background checks. And for reasons that I've
No, we shouldn't have any background checks. I should be able to walk to 7-Eleven, walk in there, get me a shotgun, and walk out, no questions asked. Everybody should be able to do that.
explained in this video, he started off with, okay, we just need to have background checks for people to the guns, so we know who has the guns and well gets the background checks and that they're supposed to have the guns, so forth and so on. Then said, after nothing changed, well, there's still crime, there's still violence, so therefore we need a registration. Then from there, started confiscating guns. Period. You can't enforce a universal background check without a national gun registry. And though that may not violate the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court in 1968 ruled that a gun registry violates the Fifth Amendment. In the Supreme Court case Haynes v. United States, the Supreme Court ruled that requiring registration by those who unlawfully possess firearms amounts to a violation of the Fifth Amendment's prescription against forced self-incrimination. The court said that if someone realistically can expect that registration will substantially increase the likelihood of his prosecution, the registration requirement...
It's unconscionable, not to mention unconstitutional.
Just saying. Well, actually, they said it.
You know what? I like this guy. I'm going to give him a subscribe and a like.
You know, when we passed the Second Amendment, guess what? You weren't allowed to have a
Hey, you could also give me a follow and a like, and that would be awesome.
cannon. No, I'm serious, not a joke. You weren't allowed to have certain... There were certain limitations of what you could have, and I love my friends, and the southern part of my state is very conservative.
But there were no limitations on what you could have as a member of the government. And what makes me different from a corporation? If a corporation is seen as a person who has rights to bear arms, they can have nukes and battleships and robots. Why can't I have those things?
The Delmarva Peninsula. We talk at you like y'all talk sometimes, you know what I mean? But all kidding aside, it's just kind of amazing. They think that you could have anything. That never was the case.
Biden
Yes, it was.
has been repeating this lie for years, and he keeps saying it. You absolutely could own a cannon when the Second Amendment was written. It's not even a question. This lie is so bad, even PolitiFact had to
People had boats with cannons on them.
fact check Biden on his stupid claim.
What type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon.
Is that so? It's time for the Truthometer Minute. We reached out to historians and experts who've studied the history of the Second Amendment. They told us there weren't really federal gun laws until the beginning of the 20th century. There were local laws limiting guns before that, but they weren't aimed at criminals. A 1792 Virginia law banned black people, whether they were free or enslaved, from owning guns. Other laws targeted Native Americans. Those laws were aimed at social...
They still want to ban them from black people, but they want to extend it to everybody. They want to be inclusive.
control, not crime prevention. What about owning your own cannon? There was no law banning cannon ownership at the time that the Bill of Rights was passed. We know from historical documents that privateers set sail in the 1800s with their own private cannons. And the claim...
If we didn't have things like the Second Amendment, the Revolutionary War wouldn't have happened.
that people couldn't own a cannon, that rate's false.
Yet and still he keeps lying about this, and the idiot gallery in the room keeps laughing in agreement with this idiocy. The movie Idiocracy was supposed to be just that.
As Joe and Rita lay dormant, the years passed, and mankind became stupider at a frightening rate.
A movie. Now it's a damn documentary.
I was about to point that out.
So anyway, look, and I love people who say, the blood of liberty, or the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. Well, guess what, man? I didn't see a whole lot of patriots that are out there walking around making sure that we have these weapons.
What does that even mean?
You worry about the government? You need an F-16. You don't need a AR-15. No, I'm serious.
That's not what the point is anyway. It's not to fight the military, because if we're in a civil war, the military is going to be split apart. You're going to have military versus military. in all actuality. What it's really for is when you send the police to my door, or the FBI, or whoever works for you while we're in that civil war trying to arrest me for things that we believe is our right. I just, okay, I don't get it. I do get it, actually.
Because that's one of the
I know why they
arguments
do
made
it.
by the right, that we need to be able to protect ourselves against the government. Well, look.
I want you to pay attention to what he didn't say. He didn't say you'll never have to worry about protecting yourself from the government because we would never become tyrannical. Instead, he said, if you're worried about how to protect yourself from the government, there's nothing you can do because the arms that you would need, you don't have. Then look smugly at the camera while a
But you know who does have them? Corporations. And you know who else has them? Secret, what do they call them? Shadow companies. And there are people that have tanks, and some of them probably have airplanes that they can attach weapons to. Like, we're not completely unarmed. Just because you got F-16s right now doesn't mean you're going to have them when shit actually hits the fan.
room full of literally the government starts laughing.
What are you going to do when you can't fuel them? Or when the power grid goes down and you can't get electricity? Like, there's all kinds of factors in a conflict like this that he's talking about, where it's people versus the government, which isn't going to be the case anyway. It's going to be the government versus the government at this point.
Clip right here.
You don't need a AR-15.
Is literally why the founding fathers wrote the Second Amendment, because they didn't trust the federal government and they wanted to protect the people's ability to protect themselves against a room full of.
And it's not just for protection against the federal government from the people or of the people. It's also the state's right to protect themselves from the federal government. That's why we're allowed to have state militias.
Laughing idiots who feel that they can become tyrannical anytime they want, and there would be nothing we could do about it, except there's this whole thing called the National and State Guards, which, as the Heritage Foundation does a great job of explaining, this claim misunderstands the importance of the protective role of federalism, in which each state already has well-trained and well-equipped organized militias of their own that can be mobilized and used in tandem with armed civilians. These national and state guards are better equipped than the entire national militaries of many countries, with their own fighter jets, tanks, heavy artillery, batteries, and special force units. And a handful of states even have their own.
You also got to think about all the crazy people that are going to get involved. Like, for instance, around here we got swamp meth heads. Swamp meth heads? You ain't even going to know they're coming. They're too fast for you. And they'll be making all kinds of stuff. They know chemicals. They'll be using chemical warfare, and you can't stop them.
Naval militias. It is highly likely that should a tyrannical federal government attempt to impose its will with the might of the American military, these state-level military entities acting under the direction of the liberty-loving states' governments could be deployed as a meaningful countermeasure, just like the colonial governments mobilizing existing militias against the British Army during the American Revolution. Joe Biden's statements are nothing.
We'll be having meth heads crawling out of the fields using blow darts that are tipped with meth.
Nothing more than a bully tactic designed to scare people from even the thought of being able to fight back against a tyrannical government. And if you ask me, it is very, very, very unbecoming of a president to insinuate that the people who elected him to represent them can do nothing to stop him from enacting his tyranny on them. And the fact that he repeats this time and time again.
Yeah, and I think that this thinking is what's leading to this problem he has down in Texas. He thinks that Texas isn't going to do anything. He's got full authority. Or maybe he does think they'll do something. Maybe this is what everybody wants. Maybe it's what we need. Because, I mean, we kind of deserve it. As a country, we deserve it because we got lies constantly in the media and the government on all sides. It's not just Democrats. It's not just Republicans. It's everywhere. Got corporations are able to buy the narrative and cover things up and collude with social media, FBI colluding with social media, straight up government colluding with social media, banning people for just speaking. We got, and the human trafficking and smuggling and putting drugs in our population and just the crack epidemic, you know, stuff like that. They arrest some people of a certain color and a certain political background and not others that who do the same thing. What else? What else we got? We got people just being extracted for everything. You know, their energy, their money through taxes and their time and their thoughts. We're being tracked. And it doesn't really mean anything right now. I mean, it kind of does. They know when you poop. Who cares about that? It doesn't mean anything until it does. And they flip the switch, and all of a sudden you're just in China. It can just happen like that. That's how these things happen. They just flip a switch, and within a week, everything's done. Everything's changed. And I mean, people are murdering their babies so they can have better lives. An obvious sheep repeating lies. Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go on to the next video now. Oh, what's this? Video explodes. January 6th pipe bomb official narrative.
There's a lot of weird things that happened on January 6th. Likely federal agents, instigators in the crowd, protesters, the way said protesters have been prosecuted since the event, the way that the media has even treated it. But perhaps the weirdest of all is the plot line that has mostly disappeared from view and could actually shed light on some of the deeper questions of the day. What happened to the so-called pipe bomb investigation? The FBI, as part of their investigation, claimed that on January 5th, 2021, more than 3 years ago now, an unidentified hooded man planted pipe bombs at both the RNC and DNC headquarters on Capitol Hill, intending to cause damage as part of the protest. The pipe bomb was often discussed in the immediate aftermath of the attack, as it was a key piece of media evidence of the violent intent of many protesters going into the day, rather than a spontaneous explosion of rage. Mysteriously, though, years later, as local DC media notes, that pipe bomber has never been caught. Despite many protesters being identified by tapping phone records using facial recognition software and every other spyware known to man, it simply disappeared as a talking point, and we're supposed to just forget about it somehow. But some interesting new evidence and analysis has actually come to light that questions a lot of this. Footage of the Capitol Hill area on the day of the alleged bomb was discovered, shows that approximately at 1:05 p.m. in broad daylight, a man in a backpack approaches nearby police and Secret Service agents to tell them that he thinks that there is a bomb that is currently nearby on a bench in the DNC. That man, it was later revealed, is a plainclothes Capitol Police officer. The officers in the video, which was released in the Congressman Thomas Massie, do not immediately react when they're told this alarming information. Now keep this in mind. Vice President Kamala Harris is actually inside.
Wait, what? That's crazy. What's he saying about Vice President Kamala Harris? Hold up.
Vice President Kamala Harris is actually inside of the building at this time. They are supposed to be on high alert. And yet, as Darren Beatty at Revolver News notes, quote, "Note how casual and unperturbed."
He was telling them, hey, it's planted. We're good to go. That's what was going on. You cannot, there is no way it was anything other than that. Plainclothes police officer comes up to other police officers and says, hey, I'm pretty sure there's a bomb by the bench. And they're just like, okay. And they don't do anything. They don't put everything on lockdown. They don't get Kamala out of there. There's not police swarming and bomb squad everywhere. No thanks.
Both the Metro officers and Secret Service officers are. Ask yourself whether this is how you would imagine the Secret Service would normally respond to the discovery of a bomb right outside of the building housing their protectee. Now, the bomb first appears on camera approximately 5 minutes after the police were tipped off. After that, police officers still allow actually a passing group of pedestrians, including kids, to walk by. A police officer then walks up to the bomb. He takes a photo of it. Then, before alerting others, he holds up his thumbs up. The video actually cuts off right around there. But the facts we can take away are this. The cops were tipped off to the presence of the bomb by an undercover cop in a hoodie that did not appear at all alarmed by it, even though the vice president was inside the building. 3 years later, nobody knows who this man was, and they also don't know who planted the bomb. The rest of the facts are pretty crazy. As Darren Beatty has written, the official narrative from the FBI is that the pipe bomb was actually placed on the bench outside of the DNC at 7:52 p.m. That was the night before by a man in a hoodie. It was not discovered until a full 17 hours later when the tip-off came. Add in this detail. The pipe bomb was one of two. It's a mere 15 minutes earlier at 12:40 p.m. A random pedestrian allegedly nearby found the first at a Capitol Hill Club in Washington, D.C., which is nearby to this location, meaning that the two bombs, which were allegedly placed there 17 hours earlier, according to the authorities, were somehow discovered within mere minutes of each other. Even stranger, according to the report, is that the two pipe bombs were equipped with 1-hour mechanical timers. So while they included live explosive material, if they were planted 17 hours earlier, they were never actually seriously armed to explode because they literally couldn't. All of this, let's just say it's odd. It doesn't prove anything, but it gives us a few possible scenarios. Number one is that this is total and complete incompetence on the part of law enforcement. It is possible, unlikely though, in my opinion. Catching the so-called pipe bomber would have been
I'm at the point where if it starts to smell like a conspiracy, it probably fucking is.
a huge headline for the FBI, Joe Biden, and the media. They were able to catch MAGA grandmas and people wearing masks who walked through the Capitol, but they can't find someone who allegedly tried to bomb it? According to the FBI, the January 6th investigation is the largest in the history of the Bureau. This is one where lack of resources and attention after the fact is just not a viable explanation. The other that Revolver puts forward is that this was somehow known to law enforcement, that perhaps the reason the police did not immediately act is because they knew it was BS, or that perhaps the Capitol Police officer who tipped off the cops is the one who, in the hood, planted it himself. One easy way is to just talk to that man. 3 years later, we don't even know the idea or the name of that Capitol Police officer. It has never even been released, despite many questions from members of Congress. So that's where we just leave a few things. I mean, I wrote this monologue exactly 3 years after Joe Biden took the oath of office, when this was one of the biggest stories in the world. And yet, it's mostly disappeared. And to be clear, that doesn't mean nothing bad happened on January 6th, and the people involved are not responsible for their actions. But it does mean that within the cloud of all of this, as with many tumultuous events, there are major parts of the story that do not pass the smell test, and ones that need to be investigated to this day. To date, nobody but Revolver, a few other independent journalists, have even touched this story. The reasons are obvious. If you dig deep, it's pretty clear where some of these things are going to land. Crystal, I mean, one of the things I even discovered...
Hey guys, obviously I had a lot of thoughts on...
I think that over the next year leading up till elections, we're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff come out. All kinds. Could you imagine all the stuff that both parties have been holding back, waiting for election season from COVID? I'm kind of excited. Not in a good way. I guess if it all ends bad, hopefully I'll see all of you in heaven. Cause I don't see how this is gonna end up not the end of the world. I hope it's not. Cause I like the world. But if we're being called home, I guess it's time to go home. Alright. Let's check out some Vince McMahon stuff. I made a video about this earlier, but I didn't really get a lot of information. I read an article that straight up lied in it right at the beginning from, what was it? Was it CNBC or MSNBC or somebody? LA Times? I don't know. No, it wasn't LA Times.
Due to the sensitive nature of the topic that we're about to discuss, we're separating.
I know who these two are. Hold on. Excuse me, Steven Larson. I didn't even notice. I'm going to give them a subscribe and a like. If you don't know who these guys are, they used to have these videos with Machinima. Hang on. It has to be. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. Yes, Steven Larson. It was the top 10 for the win. Damn, I'm going to have to go back and watch those. I bet they are not in good quality because these are like rips. Because the original videos were taken down. Yeah, all right. Going back to that. Steven Larson.
This episode of our podcast from our normal daily fare covering AEW review, Dynamite today, talking about Cody Rhodes and WrestleMania, because a story dropped.
So they just have a wrestling channel now. Kind of cool.
Dropped today from the Wall
Wish
Street
I had a
Journal.
wrestling
lawsuit
channel.
has been brought to Vince McMahon and WWE, alleging sexual assault and sex trafficking within the company. This all goes back to the hush money payment stuff that went down I guess 2 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
So
did anything come out of that? Because I looked into it and I didn't find anything. This just seems like somebody latched on to the previous story and was like, "Me too, me too."
Oh, it is. We're about to actually get into the
there
meat
any
of it,
evidence?
but we are going to do our best to spare our audience the details of this, which I will just refer to as horrifying.
Yeah, heinous,
and
disgusting,
heinous.
Did they actually happen?
It's deplorable. The actions of Vince. John Laurinaitis is the other executive named this lawsuit. There is other WWE superstars implicated.
Yeah,
or WWE superstars implicated, and it's horrific. It's horrible. It's heinous.
The lawsuit is it's out there. It's public. You can click. You can read the entire thing. I honestly could only get through a portion of it before I couldn't anymore. Like it was,
it gets worse.
Hang on, I want to find it. Where is it? Is this it? Oh, it's Wall Street Journal. Is that where they're getting it from? I don't even know if I can view this. Yeah, I'm not going to do that, so give me just a second. I've got just the thing for this. I just come over here, select all, and copy. Yes, because I'm not paying for your stupid articles. All right. So what does it say? Oh, okay. Vince McMahon accused of sex trafficking by WWE staffer. He had paid to keep quiet. Blah, 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 blah. Her into sex with him and other men arrested. Raised a question about 2020. Woman who received a payout from WWE boss Vince McMahon is accused McMahon. He couldn't get through that? That's what he couldn't get through? There was no evidence. There was no signs pointing to evidence. She alleged that McMahon lured her. And she's not charging him with a crime. She's suing him over the NDA because she thinks that sex trafficking would be bound under an NDA. So she can't show the evidence, I guess? I don't know. I don't know what that means. She didn't get paid all of her money, so she got mad. What I think happened was that they had sex, and he makes everybody sign an NDA, which is bad. He shouldn't be doing that, because situations like these can pop up. But who knows? I don't really know. But like, if that's what they were using for their source, they're out. I can't with these guys. So let's see what the rest of the video says. I'm gonna turn up the speed. 1.5.
It just keeps getting worse.
It just just
keeps getting worse, and your heart goes out to the victim. Like, no one should have to suffer through this.
Yeah, yeah. So, from the Wall Street Journal, a woman who received a payout from WWE boss Vince McMahon has accused McMahon, the company, and a former executive of sex trafficking in a new lawsuit that raises questions about the breadth of an internal company probe conducted by a law firm last year. Janelle Grant, a former employee at the wrestling firm's headquarters, said in a lawsuit filed Thursday that she was abused and sexually exploited by McMahon while he was chief executive. She alleged that McMahon lured her with promises of career advancement, and then he allegedly exploited her and trafficked her to other men inside the company. Grant signed a non-disclosure agreement in 2022 in which McMahon agreed to pay $3 million for her to not to discuss their relationship or to disparage him. The WWE received an anonymous tip in 2022 about the relationship and started a board investigation which uncovered other payments by the CEO to women. Grant's lawyer said McMahon stopped making payments under the 2022 deal after the initial $1 million installment. The suit seeks to void the agreement in unspecified financial damages. Jerry McDevitt, Vince McMahon's attorney in the agreement with Grant, said he no longer represents the WWE founder. McMahon and the WWE didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. Like we said, the details of the sequence of events are absolutely horrifying.
Yeah.
We had read in one of the letters when Vince McMahon came back early last year, about a year ago, when he forced his way back into WWE, one of the letters sent back to Vince McMahon by the board of directors in WWE noted that there were still details that had not publicly been released about all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I have no idea. There's no way to possibly speculate if this specifically is what it was referring to or if there is other stuff out there. I understand that Ari Emanuel, the head of Endeavor, had no problem standing by Dana White after he was basically, filmed striking his wife.
Okay. They strike each other. There's a difference between a man who beats his wife and a couple who get a little drunk and like to slap each other around. It happens. You shouldn't do it, but it happens. And it's not that bad, especially if she's instigating him to do that and if they both do it all the time. And they just slipped up and did it in public. That's their business. I can't with these guys anymore. Okay. So get rid of them. I've got these two. Well, this was just to point out another company is doing mass firings. Yeah, 20,000 journalists fired, sure.
I truly cherish the time that I get to spend with Taylor Lorenz because she's getting older. And, as you get older, we all remember our grandparents, and it was like your parents would say, hey, make sure you go see your grandma. She's not going to be around forever. Well, that's kind of how I feel about Taylor Lorenz, the octogenarian, nearing 100 years old at this point, uploaded a 1 minute and 20 second
Take that,
absolute
Temple.
meltdown over the fact that the millennial journalist, as by her own admission, ruined journalism.
And that.
We see the LA Times on strike, all these journalists on strike. She talks about all these layoffs and things of that nature.
Ooh, speaking of Tim Pool, I'm going to see what's popping over at the Timcast layer real quick. What's this? Streamed 15 seconds ago. What happened? Well, I guess
Post
something.
on Truth Social. Donald Trump has called on states to
Think they got
deploy their
removed.
National Guard to Texas to assist in the removal of illegal immigrants. This would be in direct defiance of the federal government's orders to Texas. The federal government has given Texas till tomorrow to back their National Guard off and allow the Border Patrol agents to resume their human smuggling operations. Texas has said no. Their AG Ken Paxton said they will not be. In fact, they've escalated things, now calling on private citizens to assist in the barricading of the border to prevent illegal immigrants from crossing into this country, providing free razor wire to private citizens. That's as far as we've gotten there, but it is the beginning. With Donald Trump calling on the deploying of the National Guard to various states, oh man, I can't believe I typed that headline out. And everyone's trying to play it lightly. I don't think anyone wants to actually believe what this means. But the front runner for the 2024 presidential election is telling these states, there are now around 30 states that have vocalized their support for Texas. Some of these states
30.
have actually deployed national.
Okay, so I looked earlier and it was at 15, and then an hour later it was 25, and now it's 30. I bet it's gone even further than that now.
National Guard to Texas and personnel. And I believe we have 25 signatures on a letter in support of Texas. And you have the frontrunner for the presidency saying, send your National Guard down now. What's the federal government going to do tomorrow when the deadline is up and Texas says no? Part of me wants to believe nothing is going to happen. And I imagine a lot of people are assuming the same thing. Nothing's going to happen. The Biden administration's all talk, all bark, no bite. They're going to file paperwork. The Supreme Court did not order Texas to do anything. So Democrats are now escalating their calls that the Biden administration federalize the Texas National Guard, claiming that they're in insurrection or rebellion. That's one of the criteria by which the federal government could federalize the National Guard. I suppose Joe Biden could declare an insurrection in Texas, attempts to federalize the National Guard, invoking the Insurrection Act, and then claiming Donald Trump by advocating.
Yeah, it seems like maybe Tim pulled it down because something got said that they thought was going to get them pulled down.
That these states who have deployed support, vocalized support, by saying they should deploy National Guard, he could say Trump is an active insurrection. We got a lot to talk about this one. This is a big story. Of course, there's a lot of other news today that we may get to. There's a lot going down with what's happening in Texas. Probably one of the most important stories of our lives, one of the most important stories in the history of this country. But we also do have big news about mass layoffs in media, which I think a lot of people will enjoy hearing about. But massive collapse. A video from Taylor Lorenz went viral today where she explains just how bad it is. And I'll tell you how bad it is. The LA Times got rid of their DC office in an election year, and quite literally one of the most important election years ever, indicating they don't think they can recover at all. So we'll talk about that. But my friends, before we do, head over to safeandreadymeals.com. SafeandReadyMeals.com provides emergency food supplies that can last up to 25 years. By going to SafeandReadyMeals.com today, you can check out the packages they have. They have the 1-month emergency food kit, 3-month emergency food kit, and you get a discount if you buy from SafeandReadyMeals.com. This is a sponsored spot. I almost never shout out things like this. The river out here. Yeah, find every single day. So I recommend food and water. And of course, when you buy from us, become a member to support our work directly. If you like the things that we talk about, if you like the shows that we do, become a member by clicking join us, and you will also get access to the uncensored members only show coming up at 10 p.m. tonight. You don't want to miss it. You'll also get access to our Discord server. As a member, you can submit questions and call. Americans should support the common sense measures by Texas authorities to.
Go back.
Americans should support. Joe Biden has surrendered our border and is aiding and abetting a massive invasion of millions of illegal migrants into the United States. Instead of fighting to protect our country from this onslaught, Biden is unbelievably fighting to tie the hands of Governor Abbott and the state of Texas so that the invasion continues unchecked. In the face of this national security, public safety, and public health catastrophe, Texas has rightly invoked the invasion clause of the Constitution and must be given full support to repel the invasion. Page 2. We encourage all willing states to deploy their guards to Texas to prevent the entry of illegals and to remove them back across the border. All Americans should support the common sense measures by Texas authorities to protect the safety, security, and sovereignty of Texas and of the American people. When I am president on day 1, instead of fighting Texas, I will work hand in hand with Governor Abbott and other border states to stop the invasion, seal the border, and rapidly begin the largest domestic deportation operation in history. Those Biden has let in should not get comfortable because they will be going home. Now, the big news here is that we actually have, the number is much bigger than this, but there is a report 25 states. Republican governors of 25 states have signed a letter backing Texas. Now, the number is actually larger than this by now, but things are changing so rapidly, it's hard to know exactly how many states have already joined in. And needless to say, look, guys, I can't believe this is the headline we're writing. Obviously, everyone's trying to be a little light on how they describe this. Mediaite is just saying Trump calls on states to deploy National Guard as the state clashes with the federal government. But Trump's entire statement is how Joe Biden and the federal government is aiding and abetting illegal immigrants. By calling on the National Guard of willing states to deploy to Texas, he is calling for these states to act in absolute defiance of federal authority at a time when the Biden administration has given a deadline to Texas. Friday is the day. You must.
Yeah, so I guess Trump is our leader at this point. Pretty much everybody thinks that Trump is the leader. He probably should have been president this whole time.
Back off your guards or else. The question then becomes, or else what?
I have a million thoughts on these, as do you. We were all talking about this off the air, and so the thoughts, I could go on and on about it, but let's be clear. Joe Biden is committing treason, and he didn't just start committing treason. Biden and his administration, when you take over as president and you defy the immigration law, when it's your job as president to execute the law, that is treasonous. They didn't fall, they didn't stumble, they didn't bumble, they didn't fail, they didn't whoopsie. The communists who now run this country got elected, and...
Okay, so what happened? What happened before they shut it down?
That human being should never see the light of day again, ever.
And politicians
didn't even get this far.
And the people who are giving the orders.
Kevin Hines-Smith didn't even get this far. That human being should never see the light of day again, ever.
And politicians
didn't even get this far.
And the people who are giving the orders should also go to prison.
Oh.
But the most culpable element of the human smuggling operation are the human smugglers.
No, that's not what I'm arguing at all. What I'm arguing is I'd like to see people in power put in prison for once instead of just all the dirtballs on the ground. Look, you can throw those human smugglers out of helicopters in the middle of the Pacific for all I care. I hate those guys too. The height of evil is the people in charge of our country hating our country and trying to burn it down. Yes, gangs suck and criminals suck.
Well, I guess it just doesn't like me. Let's get back to this video.
And I thought collectively we would enjoy her pain together, because there is no worse person other than perhaps an online influencer than a journalist whose life, the modern journalist, there was a time when journalists did good things. There was a time when journalism was an important career, an important, respected career. But those days are long gone. People stopped buying the newspaper. They went online. News outlets realized they could make a lot more money with hate bait and lies. They started to get partisan, and now we're left with it's an important birthday. You know, she probably doesn't have that many more left. So I think it's important that we all say happy birthday to Taylor Lorenz. And let's hear what she has to say.
The entire journalism industry is based.
By the way, why is she holding this mic like an absolute moron? But I digress. We're just 2 seconds in.
Basically in a free fall. Today, the Los Angeles Times laid off 115 employees.
That's it. Double it. Los Angeles Times plunges into chaos as brutal layoffs loom as senior editors call it quits. Nobody wants your product. Even the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, they've all been compromised. And quite frankly, starting in really 2016, Trump was a big part of opening people's eyes to that. Normies' eyes.
They wiped out their entire DC bureau in an election year.
In an election year? That's because nobody wants to read their lies.
Laid off.
Yeah, and all the places that always pay gate behind subscribe now or sign in, it's free. I'm just going to select all and copy and paste into a notes app to read your articles. I'm not paying for your stupid articles that lie to me anyway. Why would I pay for lies? And if you tell one lie, it's all lies.
Off pretty much all of their sports teams. They killed their entire tech and business section. They laid off breaking news writers, social media editors. The list goes on. But what's really dark is this is just the latest in months and months and months of layoffs.
Good. More. I want more. Whatever number is making Taylor Lorenz concerned about the mass layoff of tens of thousands of journalists. Here's the thing. She says journalists, but they're not journalists. They're propagandists. They are shills. They are liars. They are Nepo babies like Taylor Lorenz, who was born with a silver spoon in her mouth and will never have to worry about money and has made her entire career about ruining other people's careers. And specifically, the large percentage of people's careers that she's tried to ruin are better looking younger women. I wonder why that is.
In the media industry. In fact, tens of thousands of journalists have been laid off in the
USA, 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 USA. Media companies have slashed over 20,000 jobs, journalist jobs, in 2023. I love it. I wish that number was higher. I would.
Well, it's going to be higher. We still got the whole until November to think about.
I would like triple it, quadruple it. How many more? I think we can do more. We can do better. The best part is watching all these clowns striking, right? I think the LA Times is on strike right now. It's like, you know that they just want to lay you off anyway. You're just making it easier for them, you morons.
Past year. Major media companies like BuzzFeed News have completely shuttered their news operations. Time Magazine also just laid off a ton of people, and Sports Illustrated basically shut down last year.
Yeah, everybody already hates them. What do they care if you hate them too? You're just a disgruntled ex-employee.
Yeah, because Sports Illustrated totally put a trans biological male on the cover, and they got a bunch of likes and retweets, but the hardworking middle Americans that used to buy Sports Illustrated didn't want woke politics, so it's totally not...
They got a bunch of likes and retweets initially, but then nobody cared anymore, and all of the people who did subscribe are not subscribed anymore. Because the people who you're trying to get the clicks from, they were already not into your content. So why would you even try and go for them?
Their fault. It's so weird hearing a nearly 90-year-old woman try to talk like a Zoomer. Okay, the reality is, yes, there is a certain degree of media that has just migrated online. People want to get their news online, and then you throw in years of sowing mistrust, years of having, no scruples, no ethic.
Yeah, that's why I go to guys like The Quartering and Tim Pool and Russell Brand for my news, because they might not have all the answers, but at least they're telling me they don't have all the answers.
At all. And now people turn to internet commentators. Look how popular someone like Tim Pool is. He's absolutely crushing it. That guy's 40,000 people tuning in every single night to his show. Look at Pat McAfee in the sports world, just a regular old dude, raking in multi-million-dollar contracts left and right because he's just a regular dude, not a journalist, or I like to say, urinalist.
Pretty much the entire digital media ecosystem that myself and a lot of other millennial journalists came up in has been completely hollowed out. And
What I find profound here is that she accepts no blame for it. She took all this time to edit in all these little news clips and all this little stuff. And at no point did she realize that they ruined it, that millennial journalists ruined it. Who was working at BuzzFeed? A bunch of blue-haired millennials and Zoomers. By the way, shout out to millennials. I'm a millennial, right? There are good millennials, there are good Zoomers, there are good boomers. But millennial journalists ruined journalism.
it's not just digital media sites. Local news has been obliterated. The newspaper industry is cratering.
Duh. It's cratering. Oh my God. Get me a Werther's original. I'm a little parched. I mean, get this woman a butterscotch candy from her purse, okay? First of all,
I think a big problem is that we got too many people that are wanting these jobs. Instead, they're living their dream. They've got their dream job, and now they can affect the narrative and like push their ideology and make people come to their side and change people's minds.
the newspaper industry has been collapsing, has collapsed. It really collapsed 20 years ago. Back when she was just in her 60s, the newspaper industry was done. So what are you talking about? It's collapsing. Nobody buys.
There's not enough people who need jobs. If you need to be a journalist, you're probably going to be a good journalist. Like Tim Pool, he needed to be a journalist. I don't know if he knew that early on, but it had to happen. Just like his upbringing, his attitude about things, hit the clothes he wears. He's a skateboarder. He wears a beanie. Yeah, he was meant to be a journalist. He was meant to put on headgear and go to these war-torn countries in his 20s and become a newscaster, crazy guy on the mountaintop.
The paper anymore? Who buys the paper? Why would I pay for garbage? It costs me to get rid of it.
Radio is essentially dead aside from NPR, which has been gutted.
Wrong. This is also profoundly very on brand for Taylor Lorenz. Radio is not dead. In fact, it's thriving. You want to know the truth? 8 in 10 Americans listen to the radio. 8 in 10.
I'm over in the Timcast Rumble. I'm over in the Timcast Discord right now, and they're still not back up. Why can they not stay up on their own website? Or are they switching to the Rumble infrastructure when they go to their member show? I have no idea. Are they still on YouTube infrastructure until the after show?
But because the vast majority of talk radio is conservative and their audience is working class, leftist journalists don't even think it exists. You know how many people listen to Glenn Beck on the radio? Alex on the radio? Any conservative talk show on the radio? I mean, it's so funny how there have been multiple blind spots here that a hard-hitting reporter with 125 years of experience like Taylor Lorenz can't possibly see.
While hundreds of workers at Condé Nast, the parent company of pretty much every major magazine from GQ to Vogue to The New Yorker to Vanity Fair, are on strike because they're also facing impending layoffs.
This is also funny to me.
Oh, we're going to get laid off. We need to go on strike. We need to stop working so they won't lay us off.
I don't know. Maybe I've never been a pro-union guy. My dad was in a union. I saw how it basically screwed him over. So I've never been. Now, are there probably some good unions?
One of these companies needs to hire me. I guarantee I'll do a way better job than probably 100 of these people combined.
Out there, I suspect. I see what the teachers union is. I see what my dad's union did. So this is my experience with it. I'm not exactly sure where striking would line up in your ways to combat being laid off. All of these journalists, like writers guilds and all this stuff, they all protest and whine and complain, but they end up getting laid off anyway. You can't force them to keep you employed. I can tell you what, if I was one of these people, I'd be like, if I was working for this company, I'd be make sure I was 5 minutes early every day and staying 5 minutes late every day. There's no way if I wanted to keep my job, would I be walking in the street? That's the dumbest, idiotic self-select for firing move I could possibly think of.
Even mainstream national media outlets owned by billionaires like the Washington Post, where I work, and the Atlantic, where I used to work, have done layoffs.
And
I'm going to make a prediction right now. A lot of these companies that are doing these mass layoffs, I think they're going to start hiring actual real people to do real work so they can actually make real money. And they're going to get taken over and become these animals, these monsters that the leftist Democrats in the established order hate. It's going to be a real problem for them. Maybe we won't have a civil war. Maybe we'll overwhelm the others. I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking about the establishment, leftist, super far leftist Democrats, the new wave of Democrats. They're going to be the ones who are going to be facing some issues. They're getting overwhelmed right now, and they're getting backed into a corner, and they don't know what to do.
so, again, nobody's buying your crap anymore. I don't need the 1,000th clickbait article about how Elon Musk is an evil superhuman, and how every Tesla is a time bomb from the Washington Post. I know what the Washington Post is going to write. It writes the same crap over and over again. I know what Taylor Lorenz is going to write. Look at this younger, prettier girl and what she's done wrong and why you should hate her. I know that's what Taylor Lorenz is going to write.
If you're a young journalist today, there's almost no on-ramp to traditional journalism.
Because traditional journalism is dead, and it should be. It has been replaced by on-the-ground reporting. People on Twitter, people like who show up on the scene, live streaming. People who were, what happened was...
Traditions are for sheep.
I'm going to sum it up here. People who were willing to do the work replaced the people who wanted to sit at home with their thermostat in their apartment set to 90 degrees like Taylor Lorenz and not do the work. That's what happened.
Who sets their thermostats to 90 degrees? Why would... That is hot. That is hot. Or is he talking about she's warm and cozy? Still, 90 degrees. Does she do that? Is that a thing she does?
Not replaced by people who actually wanted to do the work. People like James O'Keefe. You know, am I going to look for a tweet from Taylor Lorenz whining about, Zoomer ramen recipes? Or am I more interested in something that James O'Keefe is reporting on?
Even if you do get a job, journalists' salaries have been stagnant and even declined. And by the way, we don't make that much to begin with.
Oh my God. You know what salary is a function of? Scarcity and demand. There are far more of you than anyone would ever need. No one values your job. That's why you don't make very much money. And with that, I bid you a very happy centennial, very happy 100th birthday. Centennial? Did I get that? Anyway, Taylor Lorenz is old. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.
And does anybody actually follow Taylor Lorenz for Taylor Lorenz, or do they follow her because they either follow her or they know her from the place she works at? I wouldn't know who this person is unless people like the Quartering and Temple pointed her out and told me that she exists. This happened 4 days ago. Shit has hit the fan since then. Let's see what's happening in New York City as of 4 days ago.
Yeah, that's right. Parents, teachers, students say it took them by surprise when they got word that these 500
I don't know who
families
Cash
would be
Jordan is.
transferred here to their high school to stay overnight.
Well, one thing's for sure, nobody's happy about this, especially the people that had to move into the school gymnasium because their shelter flooded. And so
I've seen this guy's videos before. I've seen something. I don't know what I seen, but I seen something. I just got a notification saying Timcast is back online.
Some people are worried this could happen again.
There is growing outrage against the city's decision to shelter migrant families at a Brooklyn high school.
It wasn't students in classes, but migrants in the gym, and that did not sit well with parents.
It's inexcusable to do this to the students of New York City high schools.
Mr. Mayor, you knew this was going to happen. Everyone knew this was going to happen.
The protesters said schools shouldn't be used as shelters.
And now, with another storm on the way, they're wondering if the migrants will soon return.
That's a lot of people.
So recently, the city of New York made the controversial decision to move asylum seekers from their shelter, which recently flooded, into a nearby school, which meant that the school couldn't be used for educating the students who were expected to be in their seats the very next day. Parents were pretty upset about the city's decision, but before we get into exactly why the city decided to put people in the school, or if this could become the new normal as far as how the city deals with emergencies involving the asylum crisis, it's important to understand that over 160,000 people have come to New York City seeking shelter, which is unfortunately many more people than the city of New York is able to care for. But believe it or not, the city of New York is mandated by the courts to provide temporary room and board to anyone who asks because of the city's unique right to shelter laws. But the city's completely out of room, and that's why people are now staying in tent-style shelters in a decommissioned airfield in Brooklyn, leaving many to wonder what the city plans to do as thousands more continue arriving every single week to New York City from the southern border who need a place to stay.
These tents, they are giant 7 tents on Floyd Bennett Field, so obviously there is concern about winds. The high winds could damage them. Officials say they didn't anticipate there would be flooding.
So the city has many emergency shelters, but what most people don't know is the Floyd Bennett Field airfield shelter is very different. In fact, when this crisis first began, right here in Midtown, the city rented 2 former luxury hotels, the Roosevelt Hotel and the Row Hotel, which both have over 1,000 rooms. But the city's run out of available buildings to use, so they've had to resort to using tent-style relief centers like the airfield.
Don't worry. We got some hotels and motels we're not using because we don't have tourism anymore. Tourism's dead. But we'll just put the homeless there and pay these expensive hotels and motels so these people get accommodated to this kind of thinking this is what America's all about. And then when they get evicted, they're kicked out into the mud and the ice. And they're like, what happened? What happened to all the things that we were promised? We were lied to. And then that's where we come in and we pick them up and we're like, hey, we'll put you on the other side of the border. But if you believe in us and you believe in America and you believe in our values, you have the right to try and come back legally.
Facility that don't use an actual building because there aren't any left. But the controversy surrounding this airfield started before anybody moved in. Look at that, it cost $20 million to rent the place. But almost immediately after it opened, people started criticizing the mayor and the governor for deciding to use the facility because it might be dangerous, and that's for several reasons. First, regulating the temperature in a tent in New York during the wintertime, that's gonna be tough. Second, the property's in a low-lying part of Brooklyn that's prone to flooding. And third, the property is actually owned by the United States government, and it's a historic site. But if you want to hammer in a tent stake into the ground to keep that tent from moving, you're not allowed to do that. It's illegal. It's a historic site. You're not allowed to damage it. And unfortunately, this is why during heavy winds and rain, the place can flood and the tents might blow away. And that's what city leaders thought was going to happen last week and why they made the decision to move 2,000 people from that shelter into a school.
So far in Brooklyn, wind gusts have gotten up to 45 miles per hour. We're still waiting to hear back from emergency management as to whether these tents were indeed impacted anyway.
I can't believe this place cost $20 million and it can't even be used during normal weather patterns in New York. And unfortunately, local residents of Brooklyn, where the school was located, were surprised to learn that their school was even being considered as the location of an emergency evacuation plan. This has never happened before in New York. But it's estimated that the asylum crisis is going to cost the city billions of dollars, which is why moving people into a school gymnasium was the only option the city had left, and some people are afraid it's going to happen again.
Yeah, they didn't even have a plan set in place for when all this would go down. What they did was like, we have to have these people coming in. It's inhumane. So we'll just let them in, and then we'll figure it out from there. Oh, we got to process them. That's right, we got to process them. We don't have enough of them. Let them in. They're all suffering out there. Where do we put them? Just sit them in this square. We don't have any food. We have all this bottled water that can sit out in the sun and get chemicals infused into the water. That's fine. We lost some. We gave them some money and a phone, and they're just gone now. Don't know what happened to them.
So here we are at one of the city's many public schools. It's not the same school mentioned in these news reports, but since the city owns all of these properties, any single one of them could be used for a purpose that best suits the city's needs at any given point in time. For example, this particular building is near the Roosevelt Hotel, and what happens if there's an emergency there? This school may very well be looked at as a temporary facility that the city could use.
It wasn't students in classes, but migrants in the gym today at James Madison High School in Midwood. And that did not sit well with parents who felt the administration put the shelter needs of asylum seekers ahead of the educational needs of kids.
Wow, so apparently the school ended up receiving bomb threats. I'm not really sure what that's going to accomplish other than keeping it closed. But at issue here are the city's right to shelter rules, which again provide care for anyone who asks, which legally obligates the city to move.
I heard somebody say that the cartels are running in all 50 states. I don't know where I heard that. Please, somebody who's watching the stream after, because apparently the people who are watching the stream currently, the 8 of you it looks like, or it's 2 now, but it was 8. Well, really, it's 1. Maybe 0. I don't know if these people are even real.
People from one facility to another if there's a problem.
I thought I
And in
froze the
spite of
stream.
fact that local
I'm not going to
parents were
touch that
upset
no
about
more. I
this,
forgot what I was
80%
saying.
of New Yorkers overall support the city's right to shelter rules, which means they aren't going away anytime soon. But in spite of the city's overwhelming support for right to shelter, it seems that many families whose kids attended that school were upset that their kids couldn't use the school because other families and their kids were sleeping in.
Yeah, because people who were like, oh yeah, they have a right to be sheltered. Not in my house, but they got a right to be sheltered. Well, where are they going to be sheltered at? What about the people that have been homeless here? What about those people? Did they get sheltered? Did they get money and phones?
However, even though city leaders in the asylum crisis are easy targets, that blame may in fact have been premature because apparently the school wasn't completely taken over by asylum seekers who had been moved out before school resumed the
Actually, you know what? I bet they do give homeless people money, especially in some places.
very next day. Yes, they were using the school's gymnasium and sleeping on the floor, but they were all out by 4:30 a.m., which means the school was in fact empty when people were deciding whether or not it could be used. But before we dig into this controversy, it's quite an accomplishment that the city was able to move 2,000 people from one location to another and have them out the very next morning. That's pretty impressive. And since the school was in fact empty, this controversy takes an interesting twist because for some reason the people running the school decided still not to use it.
The principal actually decided to do remote learning. Thank you for that. That remote learning is not happening because none of the teachers.
Okay. Well, if anybody wants to watch this video, Cash Jordan, that's his name. I'm done watching this. I'm going to play a video game now. Hopefully it doesn't freeze my stream. If it does, well, whatever happens, happens. Give me just a minute. I'm going to take a little intermission. Processing my Vulkan shaders. Oh yeah. Ooh yeah, baby. Okay. There we go. Small box. Ooh, that's loud. If I didn't just break everything. There we go. Intermission time. This is my. Hopefully, I can keep this going. My stream keeps pausing. My stream down a little bit. Okay. All right. What am I doing? I'm gonna start a new playthrough. Where's my challenge map? Okay. So I got a hidden enemy with an egg. Defeat Garador with only knives. Don't miss Harpoon. Probably not going to do that one. Throw grenade into Salazar's mouth. I'll try. Defeat enemies with Wrecking Ball. 3 of them. Because I've already done 2. Complete all the merchant quests. Pistol knife only. Should I do it on assisted? I haven't done a playthrough on assisted yet. I don't like the aim assist. Do assisted. Let's try it. Well, if anybody can hear me, this is the end of the stream, because it just, whenever I try and play games, it just doesn't work. I have to get a second PC